Everybody, this is a new rabbit hole for technology. This one's cybersecurity, and specifically for CISA, which is a Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, America's cyber defense agency. All right, so what we're doing today is we are checking out vulnerabilities. I subscribe to the CISA Vulnerability Summary of the week, so we're going over July 8th vulnerabilities. This is their webpage. It's actually pretty good, so don't stop. Don't just go there and look at one thing. You can see they have free cyber services. They have Protect 2024. They have Secure Our World. They have Shields Up, and don't forget, they also have Report a Cyber Issue. And so what the vulnerability summary is it's a bulletin that discusses vulnerabilities that have been recorded by NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, on their NVD, which is the National Vulnerability Database, this past week. So the vulnerabilities are based on the CVE, which is a Common Vulnerabilities and Exposure Scoring System, I guess, or naming standard. And then the scoring actually is the CVSS, which is the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. You have high, medium, low. High is 7 to 10. Medium is 4 to 6.9, and low is 0 to 3.9. So the score goes from 0 to 10, low, medium, and high. Okay, and so what you'll do is when you go to their site, or if you subscribe to the weekly vulnerability summary, you will see a list of vulnerabilities. And so this past week is 288 of them. So if you go through real quick, you'll see Adobe. I'm just going to randomly stop. You'll see some that you may not recognize, like Delta Electronics, and if you keep going, you'll see Google, which is Android. You keep going, you'll see some that you haven't heard of. ISC Stork, don't know what that is, but it talks about a certificate, and you keep going. So you got 288 of these. You got Juniper, you got membership software, which I don't know what that is. You got a lot of Microsoft, and then you keep going. And we're going to keep going. Ooh, Microsoft. Now we're down to the SQL Server. Again, you got Firefox. You have some smaller company products that I don't know. One's Easy Appointments. You can see that most of the time you'll see a bunch of the same brand or product names, and you'll see a long list of them. All right, so let's just keep going. I just want to show you how long this is. I think I counted 288 of them for this past week. I don't want to make you sick, but you got Docker, you got EXS, you got Fortinet, you got GitLab, Google Android, you got IBM, you got Juniper again, and most of these are their operating system. That's where the vulnerabilities usually are. Not always, but mostly. Microsoft 365 apps, Microsoft Azure, Microsoft Windows 10, Mozilla again. So these are quite a bit. All right, so that's basically what you'll see when you go to this site. So again, I went down to the bottom of the page. There was 288 of them. All right, and so now let's go to my summary here, which is a little bit easier. I'm not doing slides. This is just as good. So again, the CISA Vulnerability Bulletin is a weekly publication by Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is CISA. The bulletin provides a summary of newly discovered vulnerabilities that have been documented in the NVD, which is the National Vulnerability Database, which is maintained by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. So again, the CVSS scoring explained is it's a standardized method for assessing the severity of security vulnerabilities. The range is from 0 to 10. Higher is worse. High is 7 to 10. Medium is 4 to 6.9. Low is 0 to 3.9. The CISA Vulnerability Bulletin categorizes vulnerabilities based on their scores and arranges them by severity level. So you'll see high, medium, low. So when you saw me scrolling through, you might have heard me say, oh, here's Microsoft, here's Juniper, and then you heard me say, oh, here's Microsoft, here's Juniper again. It's because the first level, or the top of the page was high. Then as we got to almost the middle, we got to medium. We never got to low, but you probably could have heard and or seen company and vendor names multiple times depending on where they were in the scoring system. All right, so here's some of the key terms that are part of this CISA bulletin. All right, so common vulnerabilities and exposures, CVE. This is the naming standard for the vulnerabilities. Always try to say the term multiple times or the acronym multiple times. Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS. I guarantee you will never know all of them, but if you keep saying them, you'll, one, either recognize them, you'll know what it is, even if you don't know the exact words in the acronym, and it will start to make sense as you continue through your education or your career. So CVSS is standardized system for assigning severity scores 0 to 10. So CVE is the actual naming standard for the vulnerabilities. CVSS is the scoring. CISA is the organization, it's the agency, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It's a federal agency responsible for protecting critical infrastructure. Right, here's a couple definitions. Input validation error, a vulnerability type arising from inadequate validation for user input. So this is a vulnerability that addresses input before processing. Logic errors, a software flaw causing unintended behavior due to errors in design or implementation. These are developer challenges. NIST, we already said this, National Institute of Standards and Technology, is focused on promoting innovation. It's actually your standards and technology, like measurements and stuff. NVD, National Vulnerability Database. This is publicly available repository of security vulnerabilities maintained by NIST. Please know that NIST is having a hard time keeping this database up to date. I don't know if it's because there's so many vulnerabilities, or if they're short-staffed, or if it's a mix of both, or their priorities have temporarily had to shift. But keep an eye on this database, keep an eye on this, but know that it may not be 100% perfect. Remote code execution. This is a vulnerability enabling unauthorized code execution on a remote system without proper credentials. So basically, someone can do something remotely to your system. All right, so now I picked 3 vendors and 3 kind of products, or 3 vendors. So ServiceNow, this is a supply chain or third-party vendor. So the product is called the Now platform. It's a dashboard. The description for this vulnerability is it's an input validation vulnerability, which could enable an unauthenticated user to remotely execute code. So someone who's not authenticated can remotely execute code on the Now platform that is supplied by ServiceNow. The CVSS score is 9.8. That means it's very, very high. And if you use ServiceNow, if it's up to you and you have to patch, you need to patch. All right, so you can go to the ServiceNow site to find those patches and the information about patching. Android, the product is the package manager service.java in Android. The description is there's a logic error in the code which could allow an attacker to hide the service from settings. So a developer needs to know this one. Again, there will be patches. Android will provide them. You just have to keep track of that, and you have to go to Android to get that patch and that information. The CVSS score, 7.8, a little bit lower than the first one, but still high. And then Microsoft. So this one's kind of funny because it just says multiple. So the description is Microsoft had multiple products with identified vulnerabilities, included our code execution vulnerabilities, information disclosure vulnerabilities, security feature bypass vulnerabilities, and denial of service vulnerabilities. The CVS score ranges from 1.8 to 6.8. That's a big range, but it is multiple vulnerabilities, and the source and the patch information can be obtained through Microsoft, so you should do that. The key here is patch. Know your vulnerabilities, know the score, know how it affects your company, have those discussions with the right team members, and figure out what your priorities are and when you should get these patched and how you should patch them, and take care of your company, take care of your employees, take care of your customers, and watch out for your partners as well. Thank you. See you later.